Welcome. Please listen carefully. These are the stories that were never supposed to be told. 3 tales of things that hide in the dark. Stories that follow you home. If your hair stands up, do not be alarmed. That means you are still listening. And if you hear 3 knocks coming from inside your walls, please do not answer. The Night Watchman's Log. It started with a job I never should have taken. I was broke, desperate, and the hospital on the edge of town was hiring a night watchman. $12 an hour. 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. The ad warned, candidates must be comfortable working alone in a large facility. Security experience preferred, but not required. I needed money. So I lied, said I was comfortable, and took the keys. The hospital was St. Miriam's, abandoned by most standards but still legally active. The main wings had been shut down for years, the emergency room was gutted, the ICU was empty, the basement was flooded. Only the front office and the old records department were still in use, and even those felt forgotten. My job was simple: walk the building, check the doors, make sure nobody broke in. Nothing had been stolen from St. Miriam's in over a decade. Because nobody wanted to go near it. My first night was uneventful, except for one thing. The elevator. The elevator in the East Wing went to the basement. The basement was flooded, sealed off, doors welded shut. So why did the elevator stops, why did the doors open, at 3:33 a.m. on a floor that didn't exist? I was in the East Wing doing my rounds. Front lobby, dead air. Main office, dead air. The elevator control panel was green, lit up, like it hadn't been touched in years. I stepped closer. That's when the wires crackled. The top of the elevator shaft groaned, and the old machinery whirred to life. The car began to descend past me. Then stopped. The display said before basement. But there was no basement access. I checked the floor plans. 9 floors. No basement. I heard the ding. The elevator door slid open. I should have walked away. I should have called my supervisor. I should have done anything except step in front of those open doors. But what I saw at the bottom made me keep watching. The elevator car was empty, but the floor was wet. Not with water. It was sticky, dark, a thin film smeared the floor in what looked like patterns. Crawling patterns. Like something had been dragged into the corner. Then I heard it. A knock. Knuckles on metal, from the bottom of the shaft. 3 knocks. Soft. Patient. I ran. I didn't stop until I was outside, gasping in the cold air, the keys digging into my palm. The next night, I almost didn't go back. But I needed the job. So I went back. 11 p.m. I clocked in, opened the front entrance, and walked the same route. Dark and quiet. 2 a.m., nothing. 3:33 a.m., like clockwork, the elevator sounded. Ding. I stood in the corridor, far away this time. The doors opened. Something stepped out. I couldn't see it clearly, just the silhouette of a figure, tall and wrong. And wet. It stood in the doorway of the empty elevator, facing me. Then it spoke. A voice like wet gravel. "Hi. Would you like some company?" I ran. I didn't look back. I quit that night, left the keys in the guardhouse, and drove home shaking. But here's the thing about working in a hospital, even an abandoned one. When I checked my jacket pocket later, the keys were gone. But when I looked in the mirror that night, I saw something glinting around my neck. A hospital ID badge. Mine. But the photo had changed. The person in the photo was smiling. And it wasn't me. Even now, I'm writing this. I keep the phone in my hand because the paper might not be safe. The house smells like antiseptic. And there's a knock coming from inside the walls. 3 knocks. Patient. And always at 3:33 a.m. The room with no door. My grandmother's house was over 100 years old. Out in the countryside, surrounded by pine trees that pressed in from all sides like they were trying to listen. She'd lived there her whole life, and when she passed, quietly, in her sleep, at 92, my mother inherited it. I was clearing out her things. The house had been untouched for years, and every drawer was a museum of her habits. Brown sugar in a tin. Lace doilies. A Bible with flower petals pressed between the pages. But there was one thing I found that I couldn't explain. It was the 3rd week of cleaning. I was in the upstairs hallway, wrapping antique lamps in newspaper, when I heard it, a sound like a chair being dragged across a wooden floor, 3 rooms away. I stopped. Listened. Nothing. I tried the sound again. No, I waited. But the house was silent. Still. The kind of silence that follows a sound that shouldn't have happened. I checked every room upstairs. Bedrooms, bathroom, a sewing room with the door stuck. All empty. No chairs had moved. Nothing. That night, I slept in the guest bedroom at the end of the hall. I remember the dream. I was in the house, but everything was different. The walls were darker. The furniture was older. And there was a door in the hallway that I'd never seen before, a door that led to a room I'd never visited. The dream ended with a lock clicking in the dark. I woke at 3 a.m., heart pounding. The light from the moon came through the window in a silver sweep, illuminating the old grandfather clock by the stairs. And there, in the hallway, where there had been nothing before, I saw it. The door. It wasn't there yesterday. It wasn't there that morning. But now it stood at the end of the hallway, where the wall should have been, in perfect silence, a heavy wooden door, with a brass knob that gleamed like it had been polished every day for 100 years. I stared at it for a long time. I didn't want to go open. But the house was quiet, and something, curiosity, or a hand I didn't know, pushed me forward. The door wasn't locked. The room inside was small and dark, lit by a single bare bulb hanging from a wire. The walls were covered with old photographs. Hundreds. Black and white, faded sepia. I stepped closer. They were all of the same house, my grandmother's house. But in each photograph, the house looked slightly different. A window had moved. A porch had grown. A tree had appeared in the front yard. And in every single photograph, at every window, a face was watching. Not a person with a face on a body. But they were featureless. Smiling eyes, no nose. Or a nose, no eyes. Distorted, warped, like they'd been caught mid-something. Staring out at me from every framed memory. I looked at the newest photograph, all the way at the end. This one was different. It was thick, white, a photo Polaroid frame. The edges were blank, but the center showed the room I was standing in right now. The same bulb. Same walls. And standing in the doorway, in the photograph, was a figure. It was wearing my clothes. I spun around. The doorway was empty. The hallway was empty. But as I held the photograph, the figure in it moved. Just slightly. Its head tilted, as if it were watching me watch it. Then I looked down, at the bottom of the photograph, scrawled in handwriting I knew better than my own. April 15th. She found the door. I checked the date. My phone said April 14th. Today. I ran out of the house that night. I packed only a small bag, slammed the front door, and drove to the nearest motel, 20 miles away. I didn't look back. But that photograph. I don't have it. I left it on the floor of the room with no door. Which is why it's such a problem that it's now sitting on the nightstand beside my motel bed. I saw it when I opened the door. It's the same photograph. But the photo has changed. The figure in the doorway holding a camera. The camera is pointed at me. And at the bottom, scrawled, new handwriting. Don't look at the lens. I'm writing this from the bathroom of the motel room, the only place I can lock the door. I'm not sure who this I am. I'm sorry about the wall. But I need you to understand. The door doesn't have a lock. The door never had a lock. I'm scared it opens from this side. The train that only runs at night. I grew up near a set of train tracks that ran through the edge of town. Old freight line. Mostly forgotten. The train stopped running decades ago, but the rails were still there, rusted silver under the moon. Everyone knew the stories about those tracks. The usual small-town things, a ghost train, a missing conductor, a whistle heard in the dark. I never believed any of them. Until the night I missed the last bus. It was 1 a.m. in November. I'd stayed late at a friend's house and the walk home was 2 hours. Cold. Dark. The train tracks cut directly across my route, and it was a faster path. I'd walked them a dozen times as a kid, picking berries and throwing rocks. So I took them. The air was sharp and quiet. The rails glowed faintly under a half-moon. My boots crunched on gravel. And then I heard it. Not the horse whistle, not the rumble you'd expect. Instead, it was a sound like breathing. Slow. Deep. Like the earth itself was drawing a breath in through the rusted rails. I stopped. Listened. Silence. I quickened my pace. At the old crossing, where the gravel path met the road, there was a signal light, but it wasn't the usual red. It was dim, yellow, swinging gently in the wind though the air was still. No cars. No light. Just that swinging lantern light reflected in the rails, making them look like ribbons of wet blood. I stepped onto the crossing. That's when I saw it. Down the track, maybe 100 yards away, a figure standing perfectly still on the rails. My eyes strained in the dark. It didn't move. It faced me, silhouette against the gray November sky. I should have turned around. I should have crossed the road and gone the long way. But something about that figure, it didn't feel threatening. It felt patient. Like it was waiting for me. I decided to ignore it and walked faster, staying as far from the rails as possible on the other side. When I got to the crossing point, I looked back. The figure was gone. I was relieved. I laughed at myself, at my own paranoia. Then I heard it. A whistle. Not the trains. Something else. A single high note, like a child's voice calling a name. My name. Michael. It came from behind me. From the direction of the rails. I ran. I ran until I got to my front door, slammed it behind me, and stood in the dark hallway gasping. The next morning, I told my mother. She laughed. She said it was the wind. She said the railroad company sprinkles something to stop weeds that glows in the dark, and that can make you see things. But that night, I dreamed of the train tracks again. In the dream, I was standing at the crossing. The signal light was green. And the train was there, not moving, just waiting, a line of dark carriages stretching into the fog, with every window lit. Inside one window, there was a face. It looked like mine. I woke at 3 a.m., for the first time in years, with sweat cold on my skin. I tried to forget it. But the story wasn't done with me. 1 week later, on my lunch break, my phone buzzed. A message from my sister. She was at the old train tracks with her friends. She'd sent me a photo. The photo was dark but clear, the crossing, the signal light, and the tracks receding into the fog. Then I looked closer. There, down the line, almost lost in the dark, a figure. Standing perfectly still on the rails, facing away from the camera. The same figure I'd seen. And in its hand, it was holding up a new light. The light blinked. Once. I sent a reply. Come home right now. No reply. I got in my car. I couldn't explain it, but I knew something was wrong. I drove to the train tracks at full speed. When I got there, her car was at the crossing, engine still running, door open. Her phone was on the ground, screen cracked, showing the same photo I'd just received. She was gone. And the train. The train was there. It had finally arrived. It sat silent and black along the rails, doors open, waiting. All the windows were dark except one. In the last car, a single light glowed warm and yellow. I walked forward. Not because I wanted to. Because I had to. I reached the open door. Climbed the steps. The carriage was old and dusty inside, rows of cracked velvet seats. I saw nothing. No conductor. No passengers. Just my sister's purse, lying on the floor of the aisle, halfway to the back of the car. I called her name. Nothing. Then I heard it, from the far end of the car. A sound like something stirring. The figure I'd seen that night was sitting in the final row, ankles crossed, holding her purse, all its darkness facing me. And in a voice like old ladies, it whispered, "Come join us, Michael. The train has been waiting for you since 1974. I didn't run then. I very nearly did. But there was something else in its voice, something that made me stop, and watch the way its finger pointed past me. I turned. The train doors were closing. And on the other side of the glass, through the window, I saw her. Running down the platform. Toward the far end of the station. On the side of the map where the other tracks were. She was free. I ran to the window to be sure. Yes. It was my little sister, reaching the end of the platform, disappearing into the shadows. Free. Then the train began to move. And I realized. The doors were still closed. The engine was inside. And so was I. The train began to roll north, along the orphaned railway, toward a station that not once on the map. I never found her. But I did get something from that empty train. A ticket. On the seat. It floated in when I took the photo. And the words written on it, in the same old lady whisper. One way. Come home. I still walk the tracks at night. Not because I want to. Because the whistle in my roof keeps calling me. And on the mirror, in the dim bathroom light, I'll see the writing that was never there before. One stop closer, Michael. See you soon. If you have reached the end, then the voice has reached you. These stories are not fiction. They are just the ones we talk about. There are others, of course. There are always others. Keep a light on tonight. And if you see a figure standing perfectly still at the edge of your vision, do not acknowledge it. Because otherwise, you might just become the next story. And someone will be reading you to sleep. Good night.